Hi, Virgo. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for December of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
I'm Julia Mijas in San Francisco, California.
Hey, Virgo. This month's horoscope is mostly about your home life, creativity, and fun. If this horoscope intrigues you to try making your life much better through the use of astrology, a natal and transit readings with one of us can answer any of your questions and with no judgment. You'll find a link for that in the text that comes with this video. Well, I want to begin by saying that Juno is traveling through Pisces all month and has finished her retrograde span for the year. So if you have been experiencing relationship difficulties and challenges, and maybe even just an entire shift in your relationship, then I just want to let you know that final resolution of all of that mess is on the way if it hasn't happened already. Juno has been going retrograde in your 7th house of partnership. So it wouldn't be surprising if this did happen in your primary partnership. And if you find yourself, entering into a new beginning in your relationship life, and hopefully very much for the better. Ceres starts the month in Virgo, which is your 1st house Virgo. Whether you are a sun sign Virgo or a rising sign Virgo, Ceres in this house is pretty awesome for your care of your physical self and reinforcing some good habits that you already have, and hopefully changing some bad habits that aren't going to support your health long term. But pretty quickly during the month, in the mid-month, actually, Jupiter moves on into your 2nd house, which is where Libra is. So Ceres, I meant to say, Ceres enters Libra, which is your 2nd house. And this is her home house. She's so happy to be here. And she loves to help you beautify yourself through the continuance of those good self-stewardship habits that keep you so healthy, Virgo. So this is a really good time to bring more beautification to your life and to your body, and to create and support those good habits, and especially the ones that don't compromise your health for the sake of beauty. Then the last thing that I want to tell you before turning this over to Julia is that Jupiter begins the month in Pisces, where he's been for just a few months now. Jupiter is now direct and getting ready to finish out his span for the year. And I did speak about Jupiter in Pisces last month, so I'm not going to repeat that here. You should check last month's horoscope if you want to understand the relationship luck period you've been having before it finishes. But I will tell you that Jupiter, mid-month, around the 20th, moves on into Aries, which is your 8th house right here. And this is a house of the things that you share. Meaning the ways that you share emotionally with another person that you might be intimately connected to, the ways that you share yourself physically in a sexual relationship, and the ways that you share financially. Meaning by having, shared marital finances perhaps, or a business partnership, or investments that you might make. And Jupiter brings luck, enthusiasm, and opportunity. Now, earlier this year, Jupiter was in this house and began bringing you some luck, and then he had to take a little break and step back into the 7th house for a while. But now he's back, and he's going to move along this house very swiftly. And so endeavors to do with investment should go forward with fairly good luck providing opportunities for you. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, so don't go buying some stock that's ill-considered or not fully researched, and then blame me, because I don't have the wherewithal to give you those kinds of advice. But I can say that when Jupiter is passing along through your 8th house, you have a better chance of making good investments if you do bring the due diligence to it, and your investments can grow. And also, it's a really good time to get loans that can benefit you. So even though interest rates are really crappy right now, you might be able to wangle a loan that works for you and your life. Hey, Julia, I know you've got news about Mars, Venus, and Mercury. What's that good stuff?
Oh, yes, indeed. Hey there, Virgo. So the big news is Mars is retrograde. It's been retrograde for some time now. And Mars is a planet that represents action and activity. And when a planet goes retrograde, it's a time of reorienting yourself to what that planet represents. So with Mars, that might mean you have to redo some things in your life. And Mars is retrograde in your 10th house. This is a house of career. It is a house of your public reputation. It's a house that also represents your life mission in general. And so when Mars is retrograde in the 10th house, you might have to redo a few things at your job. That could be anything from having to go back over a project you were working on. And since the 10th house also represents your reputation, there might be some frustrations and conflict around reputation at large, whether it's professional reputation or personal reputation, just basically how you're known. That's all ruled by the 10th house. Now, December 7th is an important date to keep track of because Mars is going to be opposed to the sun, and we call that maximum frustration day. So that around that time could be where you really, really feel the Mars retrograde cycle in your 10th house. Now, Venus is a lot easier to deal with than Mars. She's the planet of art, beauty, pleasure, and relationships, so people tend to like her quite a bit. Venus starts the month in your 4th house. She's going to be there for the first maybe week and a half. And the 4th house represents your family. It represents people you live with as well, and your actual home itself. So with Venus in the 4th at the start of the month, you could be getting a lot of pleasure from being at home. You might be much more of a couch potato at the first start of the month versus later on. Venus in the 4th, if you're in a relationship, is a great time to just kind of like Netflix and chill with your partner, maybe share some quiet domestic routines together. And if you can do things to improve your home in a way to make it more pleasurable to you, like paint a room or buy some art to hang on the walls, you might find you get a little bit more sort of luck and pleasure from making your home a lot prettier and nicer with Venus in the 4th. Then on December 9th, Venus enters your 5th house. Venus loves to be in this house because the 5th house is the house of dating. So if you are single, from the 9th onward is going to be a wonderful time period to kind of get out there and meet some people. Now, if you have a relationship, then Venus in the 5th can mean that you have more fun with a partner. Maybe you guys go out if you enjoy doing creative things together or have similar hobbies or play any games or like to go to the theater. These are all 5th house activities. You might find your relationship includes more of those things. And if you have children, Venus in the 5th time is a lovely time for getting along really, really well with them, which is very nice. And then finally, speaking of retrogrades, Mercury will be going retrograde at the end of the month, but first I'll start with how he begins in the beginning of the month. So Mercury represents communication and mentation, and he begins in your 4th house this month. So about the first week of the month, you're going to have both Mercury and Venus in your 4th house. So strong emphasis on home and family the first week of the month. So with Mercury in the 4th, you might notice that you are communicating, reaching out, and connecting more with family members, or if it's just people you're living with as well. Now, the 4th house also represents your past, so you could be thinking and preoccupied with things that have happened a long time ago, and just thinking about your housing situation in general. Mercury, wherever Mercury is where we can plan and strategize too. So you're really preoccupied a lot with your home in the first week of the month. Then on December 6th, Mercury enters your 5th house. Venus will follow Mercury a few days later. And again, the 5th house is a very fun house. It represents kids, dating, also creativity, fun, games, that kind of stuff. So Mercury in the 5th for the rest of the month means that your mind is going to be on fun and games. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that unless you have to do a lot of heavy mental work, either at your job or at school. Your mind is going to be more more sort of distracted and interested in having a little bit more fun than having to sit down and do something arduous. Now, Mercury in the fifth can be a great time for games because Mercury loves games, and the fifth represents that kind of stuff too. So if you play board games, word games, or any type of stuff like that, video games, Mercury in the fifth loves that kind of stuff. And you also might be connecting a lot more, communicating a lot more with your kids too, if you have them. Now, on December 29th, I mentioned that Mercury is going retrograde. So at the very last couple of days of the month, Mercury is going retrograde in your fifth house. Most of the retrograde cycle is going to take place in January, so we'll definitely talk about that in more depth next month. But even a week leading up to the 29th, as Mercury slows down in the sky, you could start you might find that you're finding miscommunications with all things fifth house. So if you're actively dating now, you might be miscommunicating with some of the people that you're seeing, that you're going on dates with. So, slow down and be prepared to have to go back over conversations and, maybe have to make yourself more clear again later. And since this house also represents your children, there might be miscommunications coming from them too. Now, if you are involved in creative projects or, if you actively do play games in your life, expect to have to go back and review some of your strategies and ways of going about things too.
Well, there are 2 moons and a seasonal change this month, beginning with a full moon in Gemini, which lands right here in your 10th house, opposite that sun in Sagittarius right here. And wouldn't you know it, it happens on December 7th, which does happen to be Maximum Frustration Day, which Julia had mentioned before. And so this Moon-Mars combination, coupled with the fact it's a full moon, which always brings higher emotions, landing in your 10th house, on Maximum Frustration Day, could definitely spell some explosions at your work. And it would be really important not to react or particularly overreact emotionally in the hierarchy of your workplace. Because it might really compromise your reputation. It might really, like if you have employees under you, it might push them away. You would look like the big bad jerk as a boss. And if you are underneath somebody and you approach your boss with a head of steam, that could also not go very well for you. So beware of that, especially for the 3 days surrounding this moon, which does peak on the 7th. The next thing I want to tell you about is the seasonal change. At the beginning of the month, the sun is in Sagittarius, finishing out your 4th house, which I talked about in last month's horoscope, so I won't repeat it here. And then around the 21st, 22nd, the sun moves on into your 5th house, which Julia described as the house of fun and games. I like to think of it as a house governing creation, recreation, and procreation. So it is a house of fun and entertainment, also love affairs conducted just for the fun of it, and your children and your creative process and product. So this is a house in which much fun can be had. And we know that Mercury retrograde, is coming up in that house. So there might need to be some backpedaling or redoing or rethinking in this arena. But with the sun's arrival, that brings the light of consciousness and awareness into this house. The sun usually spends about 30 days traversing along a house, and as it does, it brings the sunlight of high quality attention to that arena so that things can thrive and grow. And so if you did want to, take out that old D&D campaign that you designed years ago and dust it off and invite some friends over for a few beers, this would be actually a rather good month for that. If there are creative endeavors that you're involved with that really need a kind of a reboot or a re-examination, this is a good month for that. And I would like to say that it's a good month for pleasure trips, but I really don't think that with Mercury retrograde, I can say that realistically. The second moon that I want to tell you about this month is the new moon in Capricorn, also happening in this house and very close to the winter holiday. And the winter holiday is usually a time when we are close with family, doing, family rituals and engaging with family. And I'm thinking that this year you would really rather spend time with the family members that you enjoy. And this moon is a little bit crusty, it being a new moon in Capricorn. The moon doesn't like to be in Capricorn very much. It does tend to be rather of a crusty curmudgeon. So there's some of that energy in this moon. And we're calling this moon transactional family relationships because there might be some need to be festive during this moon, even when you don't feel that way. And so figuring out what your family members need in order to behave themselves is not necessarily a bad approach. And organizing the festivities around what is fun for everybody would be a great approach. Well, that's all that we have for you today, Virgo. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like it, share it with those that you love, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can find out more about this month's moons, and you can also find our video about the astrological influences of 2023 on our website, pandoraastrology.com, in the forecast tab. And on our website, you can book a reading with us or take a class. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye.